On the banks of Gennesaret Lake, a huge crowd, Jesus in the center of it, presses in to hear his message from God. Off to the side, fishermen are washing their nets, leaving their boats unattended on the shore. Jesus gets into one of the boats and asks its owner, Simon, to push off and anchor a short distance from the beach. Jesus sits down and teaches the people standing on the beach. After speaking for a while, Jesus speaks to Simon, the owner of the boat. Move out into deeper water and drop your nets to see what you'll catch. Simon, with a perplexed look on his face, says, Master, we've been fishing all night and we haven't caught even a minnow. But all right, I'll do it if you say so. Simon then gets his fellow fishermen to help him let down their nets, and to their surprise, the water is bubbling with thrashing fish, a huge school of fish. The strands of their nets start snapping under the weight of catch. So the crowd shouts to the other boat to come out and give them a hand. They start scooping fish out of the nets and into their boats, and before long their boats are so full of fish they almost sink. Simon's fishing partners, James and John, two of Zebedee's sons, along with the rest of the fishermen, see this incredible haul of fish. They're stunned, especially Simon, the owner of the boat. He comes close to Jesus and kneels in front of his knees. Simon says, I can't take this, Lord. I'm a sinful man. You shouldn't be around the likes of me. Jesus responds to Simon by saying, Do not be afraid, Simon. From now on, I'll ask you to bring me people instead of fish. The fishermen haul in their boats, their fish-heavy boats, to land, and they leave everything to follow Jesus.
I introduced this morning Reverend Jim Ozier, who's the conference leader and director of the New Church Development Office, an active participant in the Healthy Church Initiative, and a wonderful workshop leader that we spent the day with yesterday. So, Reverend Jim.
Well, thank you so much, David. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm going to sit down here and listen.
Okay, great. Just do it. Well, I'm so glad to be here with you this morning, and we've had a great weekend here with the Healthy Church Initiative. Now, you may be a first-time guest and not even know what we're talking about here in the church going through this Healthy Church Initiative, so I want to just give you a little background about it. But before I do that, I have the privilege. I'm speaking in a different church almost every Sunday somewhere around the country, and I've learned this, that long before any of us ever got here to enjoy this beautiful worship service this morning, there were people that arrived way early, unlocking doors, fixing up refreshments and Sunday school classrooms and taking care of child care needs and all that. And would you just join me in thanking all those behind-the-scenes people? Would you just thank them for them? Because I tell you, it's what makes all the difference in the world. Well, you started this Healthy Church Initiative process about 18 months ago. Pastor Dave has been in a study group, and then some of your lay folk have been in a study group for about 8 or 9 months. And then somewhere along the line, the church decided to go to the step of inviting our team in for this weekend. And once you made that decision, then you began to wrap this all in prayer. And we did a lot of work, because what we're trying to do is just learn from you and listen to who you are and your story and your dreams and hopes for the church. And so many of you participated in various surveys and congregational research work, all that we have, and we've been using that to learn the history of the church and the demographics of the population and all about you. And then part of that, we also provided mystery guest worshipers. So over the course of 6 months, you had 12 guests here at both of the services, and just to see what it felt like to be here from the eyes of a first-time guest. Now, the mystery guest worshipers aren't just old retired preachers with nothing to do. We have this firm that we contract with, and they go online. I don't know how they do this, but they go online, and they recruit and they hire 12 people who live right here in Mesquite, your neighbors. And they came, and they filled out a report, a 115-page report. that David will get, and it's public, it's your churches, and you can use that to see how people see you when they come for the very first time. So we did that. Then Friday of this weekend, we started, and we had the opportunity to interview many of your key lay leaders and some of your staff. And then Friday night, we did a focus group. About 25, 26 people came. And then yesterday, all day, we started with another focus group early in the morning at 9 o'clock. And then from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, we did an all-day workshop about the Healthy Church Initiative. And we were getting more information from you. And they were giving it to our team. And our team has prepared the Healthy Church report that we'll be reading after the last service this morning. And now that report is based on what you've told us. We don't ever want anybody to think that we've come in. Now, when I say we, your team are clergy and laity from other churches right around here who've just been trained in this process to help each other grow in the sense of spirit of connectionalism. So this report is going to list the 5 things that you told us were the strengths of your church. And then the 5 things that you told us were the areas of greatest concern, things to work on. And then we'll take that and we've developed 5 prescriptions based on our experience of steps you could take right into the future to help you get there. Now, I want to be sure you understand that the prescription report will be very specific in terms of some things to do and timelines, but it's not real detailed. So, for instance, as an example, the scriptures say the road is narrow, not the bathroom doors are narrow. And so you've all told us about the bathroom doors. Well, we're not going to put in the prescription to fix the bathroom doors because that's something you're already going to be working on. So we're kind of looking at strategies for how to move you forward, how the congregation can move forward. Now, today I'm just going to read the report at the end of the service, and we won't be taking time to discuss it. But as Tom mentioned to you, we got several town hall meetings set up in which you can come then and discuss it, go through it thoroughly, ask questions about it. Now, none of our team will be here. That'll just be led by your own laity. It's your decision. And then you'll have a called charge conference to vote whether or not to accept the prescription report. So if you vote to accept it, that means you're going to vote to accept all 5 prescriptions. So the church we don't give the churches the option to pick the 1 or 2 or 3 that they want to take. You take all of them. Now, believe me, we don't care what you vote. We're going to present the report to you. If you vote to accept all 5 prescriptions in the prescription report, then the conference at our expense will be providing a very well-trained coach for Pastor David and for the church to walk beside you all for the next 12 to 18 months to be sure that those prescriptions are followed through on. Because we've all been a part of a study and a report where you did something and then just set it aside and nothing ever happened. So we don't want that to be the case. So we've got a coach who's going to make sure that the prescriptions that you accept will be followed and that you'll have his help. And he's Gene Wisdom, who's a pastor at Wesley UMC in Greenville, a longtime pastor and really a great coach. So that's what we're about. Now, I have to tell you, we've loved being here because while we're here, we get to hear all of your stories. And we've heard some wonderful stories of this church and the people in this church. And I tell you, thank you so much. I feel like you've just welcomed me in and our team in, and we just feel like part of the family, hearing these family stories. And I'm a guy that loves family stories. I grew up with this story in my family. It's been told for generations and generations. Now, my father was multiply handicapped from birth. But just like every teenage boy, when he hit a certain age, his heart started to beat fast when he met his girlfriend, Sylvia, who later became my mother. And so the family tells this story when we lived in rural Illinois, a little town of Greenup. And let me just set the stage here. Outside the farmhouse, there was a long lane, and on either side of the lane were cornfields, and at the end of the lane was the pond, and next to the pond was the mulberry tree, and that's where for generations all the men in the family, when they had their girlfriends, some of you remember these kind of days, they'd go to the mulberry tree, they'd take their pocket knife and carve a heart and the initials, some of you remember these kinds of things? The initials of their sweetheart. So Sylvia was over visiting my dad to be, and he announced to everybody, well, we're going to go to the mulberry tree. Now, this meant this is serious. But he probably made a mistake in announcing it because his younger brother, my Uncle Gene, was there. And so Gene ran around those cornfields, climbed up into that mulberry tree. And by the time my dad, with his crutches, and Sylvia could get down that long lane, it was almost dark, it was dusk. They sat down under the tree, and Dad saw over the cornfields on the horizon. The moon was starting to rise, and he pulled his sweetheart next to him, and he looked up at that moon, and he said, "Shiny moon high above, should I kiss the one I love?" Because that's the way folks in the Midwest talk when they're in love. He said, "Shiny moon high above, should I kiss the one I love?" And they were shocked when they heard this voice, "Lover boy down below, pucker up and let her go." Now, I don't know if that's a true story, but I know this truth. I know you love the Lord, and I know you love this church, and I know you love this community. But, dear friends, it's time to pucker up and let her go, to plant a big, passionate kiss of the grace of Jesus Christ right on the cheek of Mesquite, so that everyone will know what you've experienced. It's time now. We can't wait any longer. That's what the Healthy Church Initiative is about. How to take your desires and turn them into action. And we've heard a lot of your desires and what you want to do. And our prayer and our hope is that through this process and through the friendship and fellowship of colleagues all around the state, all around the conference, that you'll have the resources to be able to pucker up and let her go. I want to start this morning by telling you the story of Simon. Now, the reason is we've done this enough to know that some of you out there are a little skeptical. And some of you are a little fearful. We've heard you tell us that. Some of you are fearful for the future of the church unless changes are made and you get new people. Some of you are just fearful when you think, well, this is another group of folks that have come in and set a new direction for us and yeah. And some of you are just fearful about what might have to happen if we are, as a church, First Mesquite, to be the kind of church that we know God wants us to be. So if you're seated here this morning and you've got any skepticism and any fear, that's okay. We understand. And that's why we love this story of Simon, the fearful fisherman, because Simon became one of Jesus' disciples, as David so beautifully explained in this children's time. But before he was a disciple, he was a fearful disciple. Now we know he was fearful because in verse 10, when you heard the story read by Tom, we remember this, the fishermen were catching fish, so many fish that Simon fell down onto his knees and said, "Whoa, I don't understand this. Go away from me. I don't deserve to have you around me." And Jesus said, "Don't be afraid. From now on, you're going to catch what? People. You're going to catch people." So here's the story. Jesus, by now, is a popular speaker. Big crowds are following him. He's wandering around, and all these crowds are following. They come by the lake, and next to the lake are two boats pulled up, half in the water, half on shore. And Jesus said to the fishermen, "Can I borrow your boat?" And they said, "Well, sure." So he steps into that boat. Now, first of all, just think about this. Have you done this? You've stepped into a boat, haven't you? You've stepped into a boat that's been half in the water and half on the shore. It's not a solid thing, is it? It shakes, it rocks, it moves. Just start with this thought, friends. Before this church can go out into Mesquite, into the community, and reach people for the gospel of Jesus Christ, let's be sure that Jesus has stepped into our boat, each of us personally, and this congregation. Because when Jesus steps into our life, isn't it true? It changes everything. It shakes us up. It rocks our world. It changes how we're a father. It changes how we're a mother. It changes how we're a child. It changes how we love each other. It changes how we talk to each other. It changes everything. We have this saying, if your boat ain't been rocked, you're still docked. Dear friends, we want to have this process start with Jesus getting into the boat of this church. So it starts with a service of prayer and preparation. And I just ask each and every one of you to look deep in your heart and remember the love of Jesus Christ that's changed you and how badly we want to share that love with other people. So Jesus gets in the boat and he sits down and he preaches. Now, the way we do things today is just the opposite of what happened in biblical days. Today, the speaker, like me, we stand up, and the listeners, like you, sit down. But in biblical days, the speaker sat down, and the listeners stood up. So Jesus sat down, and he preached. We don't know what he preached, but when he finished preaching, he looked over to the fishermen, and he said, let's go fishing. And they humored him a little bit. They said, well, sir, you're a really good speaker, but you really don't understand fishing, because we fished all night, and we've not caught a thing. Now, the reason they said that is that's the way people fish. They fished at night. And the reason is at night the water begins to warm up in the shallow water. Now, I'm a fisherman, and I love to go fishing. And they fished in the shallow. Here's the way they would do it. The water close to the shore, close to the bank, would be just a few feet deep. So the fishermen in the moonlight of the night, they'd look over the edge of the boat, and they'd look for a swirl or the back fin of a fish. And when somebody saw something, they'd yell, "Fish!" And the fishermen would all jump out, about knee-deep in water. They'd take their net, they'd throw it right up on the shore. They'd pull that net back and catch the fish. Then they'd step back into the boat and haul their net into the boat. That's the way they fished. They said, "Jesus, we've been fishing all night. We've not caught a thing." Now, this could be the first time in recorded history that a fisherman didn't tell a lie, because they just owned up. They didn't catch a thing. But Jesus, he said, "Look, try this. Try this. Let's go deep. Let's go deep. Let's cast our nets in a different place, in a different way." And the disciples, they were all shook up. They said, "Look, that's not the way you catch fish, but because you are who you are and you've been so inspiring, we'll humor you." So they go deep into the water. They throw their net from the boat, and they begin to haul in so many fish. They call to their friends, "Hey, come this way. The fish are biting over here. This is where they are." Their friends come out. They haul so many fish in. Their nets begin to break. That's when Simon fell to his feet and fell to his knees and said, "Jesus, I'm so afraid." Now, friends, let's just kind of take a look at this story. First of all, they had to learn how to fish in a new way. I can't just say that we as a church, not just Mesquite, but as the big church, we've kind of learned one way to fish for people, but now we've got to learn some new ways to fish for people. Let's trust that Jesus is right, that we got to go deep, that we got to try some new ways, that we've got to try some new techniques to catch the same fish that Jesus wants us to catch, the people who live all around us. Secondly, let's see what happens when they catch fish. Their nets begin to break. Now, let me just say, you're going to catch some fish. You're going to catch a lot of fish here. This neighborhood is changing, but there's new people coming in. You're going to catch those new folk. And you've got great preachers. You've got a great staff. You've got a great spirit. You're going to catch some fish. The question is, will you keep them? The Healthy Church Initiative is to help you tighten your nets, to strengthen your nets, so that the fish who come this way stay here. You're going to catch a lot of fish. The systems of a church are its nets. That's how people get involved. So we want to help in this process. And you've told us what you need, that you need some better systems of hospitality. You need some better systems of discipleship so that a person, no matter what their age and stage of their faith development, can get a clear path on how to become a more developed, mature Christian. You've told us that you need some systems to help you raise up a new generation of leaders to replace you wonderful folks who have put your life into this church. You've told us that you need some good systems, and so that's what your prescriptions are going to focus on how to develop these systems to strengthen the nets that you catch. Oh, dear friends, we can't wait anymore. We've got to pucker up and let her go. Now, I pastored, before I had this job, I pastored over in Flower Mound at a fast-growing church. At our main campus, we averaged about 1,500 people a week in worship. Now, for a Methodist church, that's a pretty good-sized congregation. But just think about this. Every week, the United Methodist Church loses a worshiping congregation the size of the one I pastored. 1,500 people a week come off of our rolls, and almost all 1,500 come off of our rolls only because they've gone on to God's greater glory in heaven. How are we going to replace those folks unless we learn new ways to fish for this generation, to catch fish in new ways, to be willing to do whatever it takes to be fishermen for God? Consider this. This isn't just a Methodist problem. Not one county in the United States of America, not one, reports more Christians today than it did just 10 years ago. Can I just look you right in the eye and just say, as friend to friend, all over this country, good-hearted, well-intentioned, wonderful people have just grown a little bit complacent about finding new fish and bringing new fish in. I've read this Bible many times. Never once does Jesus say, "Follow me, and I will make you the best musician in the world," as important as that may be. Never once does Jesus say, "Follow me, and I'll make you the best administrative council chairperson in the world," as important as that may be. Never once does Jesus even say, "Follow me, and I'll make you the best preacher in the world," as important as that may be. Jesus said what? "Follow me, and I'll make you." Follow me, and I'll make you. Follow me, and I'll make you. Follow me, and I'll make you. May I just say it and ask it? If we're not fishing, are we really following? Oh, the time is now. Find new ways to fish, to go deep, to realize how important it is that we become fishermen for Jesus Christ. To turn this great facility in this wonderful location with you tremendously spirited people into fishermen. To bring new people that live all around you into this church to meet Jesus Christ, maybe for the very first time. It's just so important. I have to tell you the story about fishing. I love to go fishing, as I mentioned. Now, my church in Flower Mound was on 35, and if you just drive an hour and a half north into Oklahoma, you're at beautiful Lake Murray, which is a great little place to go fishing. And so we'd tell the kids, we're gonna just go fishing for the day, and when it's time to leave, we got to leave because it's an hour and a half drive back to the church. And I had an important meeting. Now, I have 4 kids: Eric, my oldest, Adam, my second, David, my third, and our sweet little baby girl, Katie. And so we'd gone to the Lake Murray for the day. I said, "No, at 5 o'clock we have to leave because I've got to be back at the church for this important finance committee meeting at 7. So it's 5 o'clock. And Adam's there, David's there, Katie's there, but my trouble kid, Eric, nowhere to be found. And so we honked the horn a little while, and we got impatient. I kept looking at my watch, and then we started hollering, "Eric, Eric, Eric!" And other people in the campgrounds where we were staying, they saw that we couldn't find him, and so they joined in. A storm was starting to roll through. Like last night, it was thundering and lightning, and now I'm looking around, and I'm realizing that's really getting late, and I'm walking with a flashlight now through this little path down to the lake through the woods, and finally I just sat down on a stump, and I thought to myself, now wait a minute. It's not my fault that Eric's wandered off and gotten lost. He knew the rules. He knew he was supposed to be back here at 5 o'clock. It's not my fault that he just ignored me and just went on his own way. And besides, what if he's wandered into the lake and something terrible has happened? I still have 3 children that love me a lot. So we just packed up and left. Now, if I'd really done that, you'd think me a pretty terrible person, wouldn't you? But come on, hasn't the church in lots of ways said that to a whole generation of 18 to 35-year-olds? It's not our fault that they've wandered away, quit coming to church. It's not our fault that when they get to college, they don't turn around and look at the church anymore. It's not our fault. They know the rules. They know what church is about. They know how they're supposed to act, how they're supposed to speak, how they're supposed to dress, what they're supposed to think. It's not our fault that they've wandered away. And besides, what if they never come back? We still have all these wonderful folks that love us a lot. And so the church just goes on its way, doing its business, and forgetting how important it is to fish for new fish in new ways, to bring them back, to experience what we've experienced. We can't wait. So we hope in the Healthy Church Initiative you'll get the sense of urgency that there are ways to catch fish today. We just have to learn them. We have to apply them. We got to work at them. It's not easy. But almost every church I know is really happy to go on a wishing trip. Well, we wish we had more children. We wish we had more youth. We wish we had some young adults. We wish we had more money. Oh, our hope is through this process, you'll turn your wishing trip into a fishing trip. That you'll really be successful and really catch fish for Jesus Christ. Because, dear friends, we can't wait any longer. Go deep, said Jesus. Try something new. Try something different. Simon was so fearful, perhaps you are. But I hope you'll believe that it's worth the risk, isn't it? It's really worth the risk. And here's why you can do it. Because you were all once fish yourself. Somebody caught you. Some silver-haired Sunday school teacher when you were a kid. Some old preacher when you were 5 years old. Somebody caught you, a neighbor, a mom, a dad, an uncle, an aunt. Somebody caught you. That's why you're here today. And actually, would you just bow your head and just say a silent prayer of thanks for those people in your life from the time as far back as you can remember, and some of you can remember back 102 years. And thank God for the people that caught you. Just let God put them into your memory. Would you just bow your head and give God thanks for those people that taught you, loved you, nurtured you? I don't know their names. Perhaps you can't even remember them, but maybe a face will come. Maybe you'll remember a name. Maybe you'll remember a time or an incident. Just thank God. Amen. And now it's your turn to go fishing, to fish for new fish in new ways. It's your turn to share the same love that you've experienced. I started preaching when I was a junior in high school in the little town of Latham, Illinois. And then I graduated and went to college to Eastern Illinois, the home of Tony Romo. And when I still go back on the weekends to this little church, and one of the high school girls told me she had this dream about me. She said, instead of driving in my little blue Volkswagen, I came riding into town, galloping in on a gallant white stallion, all decked out in a suit of shining armor. And I rode up under her window, and in her dream, like in medieval days, I called down for her, and she came down from her window, and she got on the back of the horse, and she said we galloped through this little town of Latham, and then out onto the highway, Highway 121, and she could feel the wind in her face and her hair, and we came upon the first big city, Decatur. And the highway split. There was the through route and the business route. And she said in her dream, she just tapped me on the back of the helmet. She said, "Oh, fair and young and handsome noble knight." Yes, I said. She said, "Which way are we going to go?" And Janet told me in her dream, I just turned around and said, "My dear, I'm just riding a horse. You're dreaming the dream. Which way are you going to go?" Our team, we're just riding a horse. Your pastor, your pastors, they're just riding the horse. You're dreaming the dream. One road leads to fear of change, fear of the unknown, fear of the future. The other road leads to willingness to do whatever it takes to catch new fish for Jesus Christ today. One road leads to, let's just keep doing church the way we've been doing it because we're happy doing it that way. And the other road leads to, let's find out what we can do to be a growing, vibrant, dynamic church once again, right here in downtown Mesquite. I don't know which road you'll take. It's your dream. But I'm in your corner cheering you on and praying for you every step of the way. Amen? Amen. Thanks, y'all been great this morning.